Hey, it's Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of People of Distinction, the talk that gives an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, peopleofdistinction.org for more info, or you can always email me directly at benji@alcoleenterprises.com. And on the line with us today, we have Eugene J. Phelan. And we're going to be discussing his amazing book, To Touch the Hand of God. Now, it's available for purchase through Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, or directly through the publishing company, Author Reputation Press. And if you haven't figured it out already, Eugene was brought to our network by that same publishing company, okay? Listen, people, if you or anyone you know have a book that they'd like moved, give yourself the best gift you could possibly give. Contact ARP and have their wonderful team move it for you, okay? They're one of the best in the business to do it. And they absolutely specialize in helping take your literary creation to the next level. So head on over to authorreputationpress.com today and see what they can do for you. And listen, it is an absolute pleasure to have Eugene here on the line. Eugene, first and foremost, man, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How you doing today?
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here. It's a great privilege and an honor. Thank you.
Of course. Well, listen, Eugene, you're too kind, man. I appreciate that. The honor is all ours, okay? I really do mean that. I think what you've embarked upon here is profound because I think, again, when we talk about the characters and some of the circumstances that they encounter, this is something that a lot of people, I'm sure, can relate to, right? And I know that this comes from a realistic background pertaining to yourself. So I'm really looking forward to this discussion. Now, before we go into the book, I think it's important to start off by learning a little bit more about you. So, Eugene, tell myself and our listening audience a little bit more about your background.
Okay, for the last 9 years, I've been an education service specialist for Kentucky. I conduct career exploration presentations for students to take the ASVAB test. I have over 80 counties in Kentucky and 20 in southern Indiana. I worked for 18 years as a counselor and a teacher in special education in the Job Corps program. I worked for 5 years as a job developer with the Veterans Administration. And before all that, I was a captain in the Air Force.
Wow.
So
there you have it.
Yeah.
Eugene, first and foremost, man, thank you very much for your service, right? And I find myself saying this more and more nowadays. Whenever I have anybody that I encounter or any, guests on our network that have served in our military, I always find myself saying that common saying, right? Thank you for your service. And Eugene, I'm not going to lie, it never seems like it's enough because I feel like the sacrifice that you and your military brothers and sisters have committed and given, man, listen, we are truly indebted to you. So unfortunately, that's all I have to offer at the moment. So I'm going to say it again. Thank you very much for your service. And then the other side of that coin is you talked about your educational background. I had a very brief stint in education myself, but I have a lot of friends and family members that are educators. And I just want to take a quick second to commend you on that as well, because listen, Eugene, I know, like so many others, educators never get the amount of credit that they deserve for all the different hats that they have to wear. Because listen, my educators out there listening in right now, you may be assigned to teach history or science or whatever your course is. But on any given day, man, you got to be a referee. You're going to have to be a therapist. You're going to have to be a friend. Like, there's so much that happens. And educators never get the amount of credit that they deserve because it is a demanding position. So thank you again for your service. Thank you for all of the work that you have done and continue to do within the educational world. And listen, man, without further ado, it's all about your book today, To Touch the Hand of God. So let's jump right into that. Eugene, please give us a brief synopsis of what the book itself entails.
Well, the book starts out with a man who's just sitting on a couch reading his newspaper, but feeling depressed and down because he recently became a single parent, and he has a daughter that's 6 years old, and feeling overwhelmed. First you got work, and then there's laundry and cooking and yard work and taking care of your child and meals and so many different things, and a feeling of being overwhelmed. and he's depressed, and he's sitting there, but he's not trying to show it in front of his daughter. He's trying to hide it. And his daughter asked him a simple question. Dad, what happens when you hold a mirror up to another mirror? And he starts thinking about doing that with a hand mirror when he's like 5 or 6 years old. And he decides, well, let's find out. And there's a large full-length mirror in the bedroom. There's another one attached to a door in the other bedroom. He gets the toolkit out. We got to use the cordless drill. We got to take this mirror down, and they start on a little journey to figure out what's going to happen. He already knows, but he wants to surprise his daughter. And takes the mirror down, and then he asks her to stand in front of the mirror, and he holds the other one right behind her. And then you have images going into infinity in both directions.
It's like they created a house of mirrors in their own living room, right? I love it. People, I'm telling you, listen, when you pick up this book and you are reading this with your children, you may be rearranging some furniture, okay? I guess that's a disclaimer we might want to put out. You possibly will be rearranging some furniture in your house. I love it. Eugene, let's talk about inspiration for a second, man. Now, your background in education, in the military, all of this is something completely different from writing. So when it comes to creative writing, Eugene, where does that love come from?
It's always been there. And I would do it off and on over the years. And about 6 years ago, I was visiting my sister, who has also been writing. And when I told her about all the different stories that I wanted to write about, when I told her about this one, To Touch the Hand of God, she's like, oh, you've got to do this. You got to get back into writing. You have got to write this book. And I promised her that I would. Because basically that's based on an experience when my daughter was 6 years old. And I was recently separated and facing a divorce. And I was raising my daughter by myself. Mm-hmm. And that's how it happened. It's exactly how it happened. And I said, yeah, let's get that mirror and let's try it out.
I love it.
And the back of the book says she was 7 years old, and naturally my daughter said, no, you got it wrong. I was 6 years old.
There it is. There it is, right? Listen, art mimics life, and this is wonderful, right? Write what you know, man. I'm right there with you. People, again, we're here on the line with Eugene J. Phelan. We're discussing his amazing book, To Touch the Hand of God, available for purchase through Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, or directly through the publishing company, AuthorReputationPress.com. Eugene, next question that I'd love to get into, man. I am fascinated by the title of the book. And not only, the title of the book itself, but also I'm fascinated by the connection that it has to the narrative. Now, I'm not going to assume, and I'm not going to jump out there and do that. Eugene, you know what happens when you assume, right? So I'm not going to do that to you. Right. I have you here on the line, man. I'm going right to the source. Talk to us about that title and why you chose it to be the representation for your book.
I chose that for the title basically because that's what happened with my daughter. My daughter is standing between two mirrors, and she's looking at images of herself going into infinity in each direction. And she said, Dad, on this mirror, how far back does it go? It just keeps reflecting, and it goes back forever. And she goes, and this one? Yeah, I said, it keeps on going, and it doesn't have any end. And she's got her hands on both mirrors. She's touching the hand of her reflection, and it's just going back. And she goes, no beginning and no end. You mean like God? I said, yes, exactly. She goes, I'm touching the hands of God. And I never forgot that. Wow. And I always knew what the title was going to be.
Listen, that's incredible. That's incredible let me make sure I get it right. For a 6-year-old to be able to articulate her perspective in such a profound way. I know some adults that wouldn't even be able to communicate their words as effectively. That is incredible. We got a little artist on our hands right there, Eugene. That is beautiful, man. Listen, we know about this book. We know about the background. I want to focus now on the future. Eugene, please tell me there's another book on the horizon, man. This is wonderful. I'm loving what it represents and the journey that's going to ensue. What's upcoming for you?
I've discussed a novel that I've been working on with my sister and my daughter, but I also have 3 other stories with the same characters from To Touch the Hand of God, Walter the father and Karen the daughter. And I have other stories, and they're all based on fact. One has to do with a puppy that does not want to is from a litter of puppies that doesn't want to get sold and wants to stay where he's growing up. And that's a true story. Ziggy finds a home. Another one is a Christmas story told in flashback. And another one is about cooking lessons, okay? Being a single parent, hey, I knew how to cook, but from a bachelor's point of view. And then I realized I had to learn how to be a really good cook for my daughter when I was raising her. Because I remember once making her beef stew, and she just had a few mouthfuls, and she goes, Dad, I'm really not that big on beef stew. And then about a week later, I'm picking her up at daycare after I'm coming home from work, and she is wolfing down a second bowl of beef stew. And right there, she's trying not to hurt my feelings, and I got to learn how to cook. So there's a story about cooking lessons and about a person that works as a chef. A guy that works as a chef in the cafeteria, I told him what happened. He says, every day at lunch, you come here for 15 minutes. You're going to get some cooking lessons.
There you go.
And he taught me how to be a very good cook, and I am a good cook. So
fantastic, man. People, listen, this is what I love so much about not only To Touch the Hand of God, but also the other books. The relatability is something to really be admired, right? I think there's something to be said when you can view fictional characters and see a bit of yourself in that, right? You can see a clear representation of yourself in them. Man, listen, now, as my grandmother would say, now we're cooking with gas, okay? Because that bridge is being formulated. And you have Eugene to thank for it, right? He set it up. All you got to do is walk across it. I love it, man. Eugene, curiosity for myself here with this next one. What would you say was a highlight for you in writing this book? Or if not a highlight, maybe something that surprised you that you weren't anticipating before you began?
I think the thing that surprised me so much was how it affected grown-ups. And I had given the book to a lot of people, and this one woman who was a friend of my daughter's, she sat down and she says, well, I'm going to read this to my granddaughter, who's like 6 or 7 years old. And she starts reading it and showing her daughter all the illustrations. And when she got to the end, she was crying. And I thought, okay, this is powerful. And there's so many people who can see parts of their lives in this when they've had tragedy in their life, someone passing away or a broken marriage, or, going through all the frustrations of trying to, let's say, raise a child on your own, and the frustrations involved in trying to do so much as you can, and feeling overwhelmed. And then all of a sudden, a child brings you back to earth and says, Dad, what happens when you hold a mirror up to another mirror? And then, at the end of that, you're like, things are not that bad at all. Let's head to the beach. Let's do something. Let's, take a time out. We're going to have some fun,
Absolutely.
And it's important in life that even when we're going through hard times, you can have fun and you can have good memories.
I love it. People, listen, perspective is everything. And this is why I started off the interview by saying, and this is going to lead into the next and final question here. This book is so much bigger than a children's narrative. It's marketed that way. But I'm telling you, man, there's a lot of adults that can really take and receive so much wisdom from the words on the page as well. Eugene, follow-up question to that. Who would you say is your intended audience with this book, and what is one of the main messages that you hope that they receive from it?
I would say that when I was asked that by an editor, I said my audience is anybody from 6 or 7 up to 107, because at some time in our life, we've always had to deal with some of the issues that are in that book. And this is just a reminder to us, we can step back from it all, and we can look at things differently. because that's how I looked at things. I was sitting there on the couch that morning feeling sorry for myself. By the time we had that event with the mirrors, I was like, yeah, I feel good. You know. And that's basically what it's about. You know, a person could be 80 years old, but thinking back on different times of their life when they had sorrow or tragedy or losing someone.
Right.
So I would say any grown-up and any child that's 6 or 7 or older. I've given it to kids that are 7 years old and they could understand it.
People, listen. If this interview hasn't moved you, pinch yourself. Okay, I don't know what's going on. You're asleep. This is so much bigger. I said it again. I'm gonna continue to say it because it truly is. It's so much bigger than a book. It's so much bigger than the words on the page. Depending on your age, depending on your perspective, you're going to have a different viewpoint that you take this book from. But that's what's so magical about it, right? Is it's not just a book, it's a movement. This is a lifestyle change, right? When we're talking about perspective. And this is something for me that I love, right? Because I think with each passing year, and I think this is something that everybody can relate to, but of course I can't speak for everyone, so let's just talk from my perspective. But with each passing year, going from being a child to a teenager to a young adult, from a young adult now into my 30s, and 30s into 40s, like each passing year in each decade or so is a new chapter. And you start to view things differently. You start to understand life differently. And you're analyzing decisions that were made prior. And your perspective starts to shift. This book is going to encapsulate that all in, 30 pages? I mean, it's a short read. It's a quick read. But it's so much bigger than just that. I'm telling you. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, AuthorReputationPress.com are where you have to go. To Touch the Hand of God is the title you have to pick up, and Eugene J. Phelan is the author you have to thank for bringing it to your table. And not only that, people, but make sure that you check back in frequently, because through the overwhelming show of support for this book, that's going to let Eugene know that those other ones that he has on the horizon that he's currently working on that are still in creation, well, listen, they need to hurry up and come out as well, okay? Because there are a lot of people that need these books. There are a lot of people that will be able to benefit from these books. You got to head on over there and pick up your copy. This is a wonderful resource to add to your shelf, an even better gift to add to someone else's. You know where to go. Eugene, this has been an absolute pleasure. Man, such an honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
Thank you for letting me be a guest. I appreciate it enormously.